Harlan. It's only me today. How you doing?
Only you today. Okay, no
Yeah,
complaints.
yeah,
Hat tip to you for the taser
yeah.
and the Yelp.
Yeah. Well, no, the Yelp wasn't IS, and you know what? As they say on Wall Street, even a blind squirrel can find an acorn every once in a while. But
Well, it seems like the last 2 days it didn't matter what you know. Every blind squirrel was out there finding stuff.
yeah,
At least the last 2 days.
so how you feeling here? I mean, the market here we're rallying on a ceasefire to a war that really never erupted here, and
Right.
that's the news. 2007.75. I mean, you can try and find some targets here, probably using the average daily ranges. But when the S&Ps or the Dow or these indexes get to these uncharted waters, what do you use for targets? How do you configure them?
I don't really try to use targets because the last thing I want to do is become mentally attached to a particular number, only to see the issue get within 50 cents of that number,
Mm-hmm.
and then the next thing you know, because I needed to have that extra 50 cents because that's the target, it ends up costing me 2 points because the stock reverses before it gets there. And then you got a whole new set of problems because you think, oh, it'll come back. So I don't really like to place targets because I don't like to become mentally attached to a particular outcome because the market's a very fluid entity, as we've seen. So, speaking of, the Russian and Ukraine situation, it's like a Mr. Miyagi market, when it comes to that situation.
Mr.
Wax
What?
on, wax off. One day they're this and one day they're that, and it's like, why not just pay attention, to the market and what we're seeing. We're sitting here levitating, in the 2,000 level on the S&P, and the Nasdaq, which pretty much leads the market, just keeps eking into new highs here. So, but what's underneath the surface? Yesterday was a good day in growth land. You saw 3% of the NASDAQ is Facebook, and Facebook woke up. And so no complaints there. Twitter, kept plowing higher. So it's just getting hard to find a lot of decent names that look like, how about your taser yesterday? That was pretty much where you want to look at things. When you see those, just like you're saying, you see those little pullbacks like that, that's what you want to look for. And look what happens when they rocket up. That was a huge move, percentage-wise, 12%? Yeah, that's a great return in a couple of days for you scalpers. So.
You did talk about when I was here last week. We were talking about seasonality a little bit, and you were talking about how we had to run up into Memorial Day, and then that continued very strong. Another run up into the 4th of July that turned out the other way. Now you had the run up into Labor Day here, and so is this week really critical for you in the market? To like if we hold in here or take off on a rally, do you just see like a similar move that we had in the market, after Memorial Day?
Well, as far as the NASDAQ goes, the NASDAQ composite, we just put on 50 points and we're going to open up another, 10, 12, 13 points. So, that's just in 2 days. That's a nice, healthy run in 2 days. But, we came up there, we consolidated, I guess you could say, for a day or two. And then we kind of, here comes the late to the party. And, the interesting thing I did start to notice last night and early this morning, you're starting to get these people coming out of the woodwork saying 2,300 on the S&P, 2,150 is a lock. That's the type of chatter that you usually start to see, after a market has already started to make a run. Just like at, bear market lows, Harry Dent sitting there saying, we're at a bear market low years ago, and he's sitting there saying, oh, we're going to 5,000 or 3,500. So, don't listen to that noise. Look at the market. It is short-term extended. Overbought is staying overbought. But, by the same token, there are some things that are building out patterns, and it's probably going to be more of a rotation type of situation. As far as I'm concerned, you do have to buy the dips in names with structure at supports when you see it. The hard part is sitting on your laurels and doing nothing when you see a market that kind of takes off like it did yesterday, at least with the NASDAQ, and a lot of growth. So, I'm pretty disciplined in show me the pullback, let me trade what I see based on my style, and I'm just not seeing a ton that I feel comfortable with. So that
Okay.
tells me something too.
Right. So is there anything that you still have on your buy radar that we could take a look at?
There's a lot of names I'm watching, but after the last 2 days, it's kind of hard to want to, jump into the fray here, knowing that we really haven't had any decent consolidation. So, Zillow, the last 4, 5, 6 days, ticker symbol Z, that's been pulling off, 1, 2, 3, about 6, 7 days, pulling back off its highs, much like your taser did the other day. So there's one to keep an eye on.
Okay, how about KNX here coming from One More Shot? I don't think that this is one we've talked a whole lot about here. Kind of trading near the highs of the move here. What do you got any take on KNX? That's Night Transportation Incorporated.
Well, when I start thinking about the truckers and things like that, I right away want to go right to the leader of the group, which we'll talk about in a second. But, just looking at this chart, 6-month daily chart with a 50-day, its range is 23.5 to 26-ish. So, and here you are pushing the 26 zone again. So, if you frame your trade, hey, I'm going to buy support at 23.5, I'm going to sell resistance at 26. You're probably not going to go stepping up to the plate in here because you're much closer on the long side because you're much closer to range resistance if you want to look at it that way. But when I start looking at a name like this, I go right away. I go to ODFL, I think it is, Old Dominion Freight Line.
ODFL. I have never heard of that one. Whoa, that thing is motoring, huh?
Well, look at it. Fresh breakout. 65 was your breakout of a base there, and it rocketed up, in a short period of time to 68. Pulled back off its highs 3-4 days, and boom. This is what I mean by the growth. So if you look at this chart over a 6-month period, with a daily 50-day moving average, and then look at night transportation, see the big difference. Night transportation is very sloppy, wide-ranging, and all over the place, whereas this name looks much orderly, and it's higher highs and higher lows.
If you did play, I don't know if you did play this thing when it broke out above 65. What do you? How close of a stop do you use on something like that? Just for example, let's going back to the dailies here. You broke through on August 11th. You went to 65.31, but you closed at 64.58, and then you had a couple other days where it got above 65. Do you take the position the first time it breaks above 65, or do you wait for a close above 65 on something like that?
Well, the breakout buyers will typically buy the breakout, and then they're just going to set X% stop. It all depends on what type of a trader or investor are you. Are you longer term? Are you shorter term? That's something that each individual has to answer themselves. But for a person that works off of the daily, that's more of trying to manage the overall trend of the issue. It breaks out of 65. Okay, you got some fluctuation there, not by all that much. It didn't break the 50-day. It didn't break its crossover, one could say, at 64. So, if you bought it at 65 as it broke, you got shaken up a little bit that one day, but then look what it did the next day. So, that you have to allow for some sort of fluctuations versus, it broke out, now it's reversing. Well, how much is your stop? If your stop is, I'm going to use a break of the 50-day moving average, you would have never gotten stopped out. It would have kept you in the trade. So you have to use other tools than just flying by the seat of your pants when something goes negative.
Okay,
So
we got Sheldon McIntyre, Her Capital, and Rob Hood coming out you with some major symbols here. So we're gonna do it a minute. You got a minute to do each of these or less, okay? And we're
oh
gonna
gosh,
start.
all right.
We're putting the pressure on Harlan. Okay, starting with Facebook. What do you think about this thing breaking out to new all-time highs here?
Um, well, it's kind of hard for me because I was long this issue down in the low 60s, and when it spiked on earnings up to that 76 back in late July, that's when I got rid of my position. And since that time, I have nothing bad to say about it. Here we are. One could say it's breaking out of a base into a new high, and that base goes back from the earnings announcement through to today or yesterday. So support 72, resistance
Getting
right
up
in here,
there.
but you're
Yep.
breaking out.
Yep. I think you need. I'm keeping an eye on that former all-time high that you had. It's let's see here. During the day session, it was 76.74. Traded higher than that in the pre-markets. I'm using that as minor support. Okay. How about let's go to Baidu.
Yeah, that was a really nice trade. I missed that yesterday, and I am so mad at myself. That was just a great setup because look at the lows of August.
Oh boy.
You hit
Look at that.
210, you chewed around, and then you came back and retested 210, which draw a line
Wow.
across 210, that was support. And then you pulled back, you hit that support at the beginning of August, you bounced up to, I'm going to call it 222-ish, and then you nice, tight, and orderly, you pulled back off those highs, retested support, and off to the races. So I've got nothing bad to say about it, except it's a missed trade on my end. So just a great name, just a great setup.
I guess if you
So
do
this is,
have to exit this thing today, Sheldon, 229.60 was your all-time high back on July 28th. Big day yesterday. Could be a continuation two-day move. Okay, moving on here, and that is maybe I need to get my specs out here. Is that
yeah, it's
baby?
really an awesome chart. It really is.
How about BABY? I think is what that symbol is. There is a baby. Is that a symbol? Okay, BABY. Not one I'm familiar with here. Was this winding up here? Well, they had to break out yesterday. False breakout over 28, then broke out yesterday. What are you looking for in baby?
Well, when I look at it really close, I look at the basically since July through current day. Went on a tear, ran up to 29.5, pulled back to 27. So there's support. So 27 is support. The 50-day isn't really that far below it. So, that's an issue that, okay, if you're a buy support and sell resistance, there's your framework right there for, a quick trade. Doesn't have a lot of scale, but here too, you have an issue that's closer to resistance than it is support. We like to buy support in names with structure that are trending higher, and, it's just not there right now, at least not for me. So if it
AI.
comes back to 27, you might be okay.
Wow, all these charts look at the same here. What do you think about this AIRM? Had the gap and go, and now just major consolidation here. You're looking to play this thing on a breakout today. It's hit $60 and 60.05 in yesterday's session. Had a couple other highs right around 60 here. But Harlan, I think you're going to say this is coming up on the upper end of its trading range.
It is, and let's not forget that. Remember, our markets, our indexes have been on a tear here. They have yet to really catch their breath to any great degree. A great catching your breath would be, doing what this issue did on that earnings pop up to the 60 level. You see what it did for the rest of the month. It just kind of trailed and pulled back off its highs. So, for me, I also have to keep in mind what is the overall market climate. Are we extended? Are we overbought? So I have to take that into consideration too. And, looking at this issue, you're right. It's, 61-ish is going to be some resistance that you may need to get through. Will we get through? The concern is, are you going to get a head fake? Because we are so overbought in the short term, in the indexes. So, I guess if you own it, enjoy the ride. Watch that 60 61-ish level. If it breaks out, enjoy that ride. But, at some point, you can lock some of your gains. I'm not going to be a buyer of it if it breaks out here.
Okay. All right. How about UBNT? I believe, is that a networking company? Ubiquity
Yeah, it is.
Networks? Okay. Is this one on? Seems like these stocks have been hot. What are you looking at in this one?
I actually like this name. I like it in a bigger picture pattern. If you draw a line, let's just for simplicity's sake, just 6-month chart, draw a line right across
Yeah.
48.
Yeah, it's looking itchy. Yep. Yep. How about
Now 48 resistance, if this thing can, chew around here, base build, go sideways, consolidate its recent move off of 38 back in the beginning of August, and tighten up in here and then break out, to me, that would be what I would call a right side of cup crossover long side entry, because it's an issue that's emerging out of a correction and maybe in the process of going back to retest its highs.
Okay,
So,
Dennis
I
is
like that
getting
name.
Dennis is getting itchy on GMCR. What do you think of this one? Green Mountain Coffee.
Let's take a gander. Well, classic, you get the big pop, news-driven pop, and what does it do? It just kind of chews around and goes nowhere. So whenever you get these big pops like this, it doesn't. Don't be afraid to lock some of your gains. You don't have to take the whole position and get rid of it. I see an issue that obviously just went from like 113 to 135 over the last month, and it's hitting a new high ground. I don't know. I guess draw a line across 127. So there's your support, at least for me.
How about
what I do like is the last 5-6 days, it has been pulling back off of those highs. That's healthy.
okay?
A little overbought, but it's healthy. It's building. If it's going to go, let it build out a little bit more.
Okay, these last two from Rob Hood are they're going to be tough charts for you. The first one is ZLTQ. The stock's been moving up nicely. Any thoughts on ZLTQ?
Yeah, it's more of one of those. There's that same thing. It breaks, nice big gap up, and what does it do? It pulls back right off its highs in early August, and that's just a great trade setup there. Here, you're kind of a little bit late to the party, unless you're a person that likes to buy, breakouts.
Right.
Then I guess you just got to go with it. If you're one that likes to buy breakouts, okay, it broke over 22 yesterday. Draw a line across 22, and if it breaks below 22, maybe you just, walk away from it because it came right back into that structure. I think the safer trade, the better trade, at least in, my opinion, would be you see the big gap up, pulls right back off its highs. That's the time to jump on these names.
Okay, last one real quick.
You're a lot closer to a support, too.
GSVC. This is the last one. Then we're going to let you go. This thing's looking itchy here. Is this thing ready for a breakout?
Well, draw a line across 11-ish.
Okay.
So, now if this thing can, draw a line across 11 and it pulls back off its highs right in here, the full stochastics get oversold versus overbought. The RSI kind of pulls back to the 50 zone. That might be a name to definitely watch. So I got nothing bad to say about it. Looks like you got some resistance starting at 12.5. But short term, it's showing a little bit overbought. It doesn't look nothing like your Taser or your Baidu.
Gotcha.
So folks, take the Baidu chart, and just really kind of study that, pull back off highs and support. And the same thing with the last 5-6 days on Taser. Those are two great charts.
Okay, Harlan Pyan coming on, co-founder of All About Trends, giving us his consistent outlook on the markets. Harlan, thanks for coming on a little bit later time today. We'll talk to you next week.
You bet. Take care, everyone. See you later.